What I heard this week is that commercial real estate, when it comes to empty buildings, the value is plummeting. Yes, that's right. I believe the value of empty buildings in commercial real estate is starting to crack badly. I looked at an empty building in Durham, North Carolina, and the reason I mentioned that it was an empty building is when we're in an upward trending market and there's an empty building, sometimes people will bid on that building. You'll get multiple bids, right? Because the market's tight and people are willing to take the risk of buying an empty building, putting money into it, and then leasing it up because they feel like with the money I put into this building and improvement, I'm going to get a higher rent because we're in an upward trending market. Well, the opposite happened in this specific scenario, 2 buildings. The seller, via a commercial broker, said they wanted $180 a foot, which I thought was a ridiculous number for an empty building. So what did we do? We went at $100 a foot. Yeah, I went that low. And they didn't choke on it. They came back at $135 a foot. That's a pretty big drop in one swing of an LOI. And then we decided, you know what, let's go back at $110 a foot. That's what we have now submitted. We'll see where we land. I believe we're going to get it. Maybe we got to go up to $115 a foot, but that's a far cry from the $180 a foot that they wanted. And it's because it's an empty building, and I believe we're in a downward trending market. And when you're in a downward trending market, the risk of trying to fill up that building, that's the risk. And that's also the value in real estate. It's the activity inside the building that drives the value of the property and how much demand there is for whatever activity is happening in that building. Now, this happens to be kind of a specialty asset because it has a swimming pool and it's 2 buildings, and the second building is basically for clinical use. The 2 buildings were used as an obesity center, so the swimming pool and the gym and all of that was in one building for patients, and then the clinical side was in, let's call it, the administrative building. But I believe that asset is going to have a tough time trading for a variety of reasons, but I think it's mostly because we're in a downward trending market. What also came out this week was the Yardi Report. Yardi is a company that tracks a bunch of commercial real estate metrics. They said in their report, it's in public domain, check it out, that 30% increase in operating expenses has occurred in the last 5 years. That's an average of 6% a year. Let me tell you something. Anybody who did financial projections 5 years ago, none of them, 0% of them said in their little model, operating expense growth rate, 6%. None of them did. 0 out of all of them. 0 out of infinity. No one does that because that's a wildly high growth rate for operating expenses. Most of the time, an aggressive number would be, 2.5%. A conservative number, somebody who's conservative about projecting, it'd be like 3.5%. 6%, all that means is that the amount of money that you thought would be left over to distribute, to pay your lender and to pay your investors is going to be less. Is absolutely going to be less. And it's putting stress. In that same report, you already said that the lenders for the last 2 years have been extending these loans. And they're just at the point where the pressure is building up and that these assets are now essentially distressed and that they are going to have to start unloading them off of their books. This is in black and white that they put in their report. It is a national report on multifamily apartments, okay? And usually apartment buildings are a bellwether, canary in the coal mine for the rest of commercial real estate. If their operating expenses are going up, everyone else is too. And they're basically saying, hey, yeah, there is distress. It's the first time they have said this in any of their reports. And then what else happened this week? Whirlpool. I believe it was the CFO came out and said this is the worst demand they've seen for their appliances since the Great Recession. Since the Great Recession. That's pretty fucking bad. Okay? Secondly, Whirlpool, that is a company that always pays a dividend, no matter what, for decades. And what have they done? They have said, we are going to pause dividends indefinitely. That is not what you want to hear from a publicly traded company that sells shit that we all need and all have to replace over time. Not even just the consumer. Think about how many apartment buildings are out there that have a washer, dryer, a dishwasher, a microwave. They're just saying there's no, right? Kraft Heinz, that CEO came out and said their consumers are running out of money by the end of the month. They are dipping into savings. That is wild. But then when you look at the credit card number that came out, it was expected to be $13 billion in March. Now it's $24 billion. None of this bodes well. None of it doesn't sound good. But let's look at the flip side of it. Why am I even chasing this deal? Well, I'm chasing the deal because I still believe in essential services. I believe that no matter what, people will have to spend on the things that are primary to their life. One of the buildings has a pool already built. It's one of the reasons why the building isn't selling, right? Because you got a pool. Who the hell needs a pool? Well, I have a partner who happens to do swim schools for children, right? So that's a safety thing. If you have a young child, you need to teach them to swim. You're not going to skimp on that. That's our belief. And then in the second building, it's very much designed for medical office. Medical office is essential. That is something that I don't think people will skimp on. I think that is something people will put on their credit card. There's a reason why private equity right now is investing in all of these types of services, because they know that people will continue to spend money on that. They're getting into plumbing businesses, HVAC businesses. They're getting into all types of healthcare businesses, from, psychologists to behavioral clinics to all types of other elements of the healthcare industry, because they feel like people will continue to spend money no matter what. And as far as it comes down to real estate, like I said before, it's the activity in the building that matters. That's what gives it value, right? Private equity guys, they're not any smarter than anyone else. But the reality is it does feel like things are slowing down and people's wallets are not going as far as they used to. So if you have a building that has essential services, well, the value of that, when you have a contracting market, that value is going to go up, right? But if you have something that just doesn't have that much value, discretionary income, yeah, I think it is going to go down. I mean, there's countless reports that restaurants are struggling. I mean, they're blaming a lot of it on, people don't drink alcohol. You know what it also is? People don't want to pay $100 a head to eat something. I mean, there's comedy clubs in New York, for God's sakes. It's $50 just for the ticket. That's before any fees. That's for one person. And then you have a 2-drink minimum. And then you have to tip on top of that. There's no way you're getting out of there but with less than $80 a head. Okay? So if you go with one other person, it's $160 for both of you. And let me tell you, the drinks are watered down, man. They're not great. So you're paying $160 for a couple to go. Those are the types of things where you measure the activity inside the building. I would suspect things like that are going to start to struggle. I mean, we're hearing it with World Cup, that there is no bump in room bookings. There just isn't. And everyone was betting on the fact that there was. That's an easy thing to cut out of your budget. And I'm hearing that from every one of my friends from very different income brackets, that they are starting to cut certain things out. But look, when you have credit card balances at $24 billion in March, that's what was spent on credit cards. It's an enormous amount of money that people are still spending. And of course, what's going on in the Middle East? We got gas prices that continue to shoot up. So we'll see what happens there. But As far as what I heard when I was in Durham, North Carolina, looking at that building, I'm starting to get that sense, you know, that empty buildings, that's a great indicator of what's going on. Also, another good indicator is I'm sitting there talking to the commercial broker. He's touring me. We probably walked, I don't know, for 5 to 10 minutes around both buildings. He was telling me about all types of other properties he's got listed all over the place. That usually is an indicator of a broker just trying to get a transaction done. Hey, well, if this doesn't work out here, let's go take a look at this one over here. I got a deal in South Carolina. I got another deal here in Charlotte. It's, you know, and hey, if I was a commercial broker, I'd probably be doing the same thing, but it's manic. It's not synthesized. It's not narrow. You don't even know me. You don't even know if that's an asset class that I would want to buy. You don't know much about me. And you're distracting me from the asset that we're already looking at. There's a lot of things that I translate when I hear that, and it's mostly struggle. It means that assets are not moving. For God's sakes, when I went there, the Uber driver, super nice guy, was pitching me a real estate deal. You know, he said, oh, hey, there's a town center, a retail center. Are you familiar with it? It's in Raleigh. I said, yes, of course, I'm familiar with it. He's like, yeah, it's back on the market. Are you interested? I'm being pitched by the Uber driver. You know, when the market intel trickles down to the Uber driver and the Uber driver is trying to cut a deal, something's going on, okay? Something's going on, and I can't believe that it's good. Now, it's a crazy time in the market, the economy, and what I hear from my friends that I really believe have common sense and are logical, they just got their hands up. They're just like, I don't know, this is crazy that we're still floating. It just has a lot of 2000 vibes, man. I mean, I keep saying that, but this really feels like how it felt like as we went into the year 2000. I hope it's not the same result, but you know, the more I hear tech CEOs, particularly the AI guys, freaking everybody out, trying to scare people, they're using fear and urgency to try to raise money. Don't get it wrong. When they go out there and they say, oh yeah, white collar jobs are going to be gone in 18 to 24 months, well, we're already 4 months in. So you're telling me it's 14 to 20 months? It sure doesn't feel like that's going to happen. That's to scare the shit out of the investment community, to be like, hey man, you better join this party before it's over. It's going to end in 18 to 24 months. Give me your money. I need to raise $1 trillion. They're going to use fear and urgency. That's a tactic that they always use. So I don't necessarily have a lot of confidence when they say that. I get the opposite. I'm like, I guess you guys, I mean, I don't know. I mean, look at how much CapEx has been spent versus the operating income of these companies. And look at, they started funding all of these. The Mag 7 started funding all of these data centers with cash, but now they're going with debt. I mean, look at this chart. It just shows you that their liabilities now, by a ratio of 2 to 1, outnumbers the cash that they have on their balance sheet. So they're going into the debt financing world. That's when things get a little scary. If you start financing things with debt, you need a return on your investment. If it's just equity, hey, you know, you gambled. It's equivalent of going to the casino, and if you're just using the cash that you got in your wallet, hey man, you're a big boy, no big deal, you lose that money. The problem is when you use your credit card. You go to the machine and you pull out your credit card and you're pulling on a line of credit now to fund your casino habit. That's when you better hit. You better win. You better win your hands. You better win at blackjack. You better win at roulette, because now you're using debt. You're fucked if that doesn't work out. So we're in that intensity I think phase. I still always believe there's opportunity. I'm going to continue to look at things that are essential services. I love that sector. I think that sector is going to do quite well because that money that people do have, they're going to always use it on things that are necessary in their life. So, you know, when the shitstorm comes, you got to stay calm, as there's always opportunities. So this week coming up, I'll actually be in New York. Got a couple panels, couple networking events I'm going to go to. I will report back. Please hit subscribe if you already haven't, and share this video if you're getting any insights from it. And I will see you next week.